Hello, my name is Judy Liang. Today I'll be performing Mabel Ping-Hua Li, a forgotten leader in women's suffrage and Chinese American rights. Mabel Ping-Hua Li was the first Chinese American suffragette, a fearless advocate who fought for women's voting rights and Chinese American equality during the early 20th century. Despite being denied U.S. citizenship and the right to vote, she became a powerful voice in women's rights, believing that political equality was essential for social progress. Beyond suffrage, she dedicated her life to civic responsibilities, empowering Chinese American communities through education, economic opportunities, and activism. This is Mabel. The strings remember, each know a whisper of the past, a speech, a march, a dream once thought impossible. A lifetime ago, I remember the streets of New York, the sound of hooves against pavement, mixing with voices of women demanding to be heard. Me, Mabel Ping-Hua Li, a Chinese girl on horseback, leading the march for suffrage. Who would have thought? The world did not make space for girls like me, certainly not in politics, not in universities, and not even in the country I call home. But I was never one to wait for these so-called permissions. Education, equality, opportunity, these were not gifts to be granted, but rights to be fought for. I was born on October 7th, 1896, to a Chinese family in Canton. My father, Dr. Li Tao, was a pastor missionary who moved to the United States when I was 4. At the age of 9, I earned the Boxer Indemnity Scholarship, supported by President Theodore Roosevelt, to improve Chinese-American relations. I was reunited with my father in Chinatown, New York City, where we settled, and I continued my studies at Erasmus Hall. At the time, I thought New York City was like a melting pot of cultures. There was, of course, Chinatown, Little Italy, and the Lower East Side. Streets bursting with new languages, food, cultures. It was a place of energy, a place where I thought there was possibilities. But I soon came to realize that even in this place, I did not truly belong. The Chinese Exclusion Act made sure of that, barring Chinese immigrants from ever becoming citizens. But if they do not make space for us, for people like me, I will make space for myself. My first steps towards that goal was joining the growing debate over a woman's right to vote. Suffrage. The 19th Amendment was still a dream, but women across the country were fighting to make it a reality. I began my journey by working with the National Women's Suffrage Federation. At 16, I was organizing a suffrage march for the spring of 1912 in New York City. Among the leaders were Anna Howard Shaw, Harriet Laylau, and Elva Belmont. I was merely 16, and it felt like an honor. The New York Tribune even wrote an article about me. Chinese girl wants vote. They call me the symbol of a new era, when all women were free and unhampered. All Chinatown is proud of little Miss Mabel Lee. Proud. And yet, what does pride mean when the very rights I fight for will still not belong to women like my mother, like me? They praise my education, my ambition, my will, but will they stand by me when I demand more? When I demand citizenship, equality, and a true place in this nation. They call me the future, but how could I be the future in a country so blind? On May 4th, 1912, I led 10,000 marchers up Fifth Avenue on my white horse from Greenwich Village to Carnegie Hall. Along the way, people asked me, why do you fight for suffrage? You're Chinese. You can't even vote. You wouldn't be able to. But I responded in the Chinese Student Monthly, the meaning of women's suffrage is not confined to just the ballot box, just as the Seneca Falls Convention discussed. Suffrage is acknowledgement of a woman's worth, her intellect, her right to shape the destiny of her nation. I knew then, as I know now, that this fight was bigger than me. It was bigger than all of us. It was about justice. It was about dignity. It was about proving that all women deserve a seat at the table. For no nation can ever make real and lasting progress in civilization unless its women are following close to its men, if not actually abreast with them. In 1916, I stood before the Women's Political Union and delivered my speech, China's Submerged Half. I spoke of the women of my homeland who had been oppressed, silenced under filial piety, and yet found ways to rise, becoming philosophers, poets, warriors, and leaders. They have shaped empires, they've built cultures, and yet they've remained submerged. If women like these, under so much oppression, can achieve so much, Imagine what we could do if we were given our full rights. Imagine what we could and can achieve. I wrote, I spoke, I believed fiercely that justice would answer. And in 1920, it did. But the vote was not for all women. The 19th Amendment was ratified. Women had won the right to vote. But as I watched my white sisters cast their first ballot, all I could do was stand outside, looking in. The Chinese Exclusion Act still barred my people from citizenship. And without citizenship, there was no vote. I thought about giving up, but I couldn't. I did not stop. If the vote was denied to me, I would build power in other ways through education, leadership, and activism. I earned my PhD in economics at Barnard Columbia College, becoming the first Chinese woman to do so. I founded the first Chinese Baptist church in New York City, creating a sanctuary for immigrants, particularly women, to ensure that those who came before me would have opportunities that had once been denied. And decades later, in 1943, the Chinese Exclusion Act was repealed. My right, our right, Chinese American rights, was finally ours. Mabel Ping-Hua Lee was more than just a suffragette. She was a pioneer who understood that with rights comes responsibility. She shaped the fight for Asian American civil rights and gender equality. Today, over 5.6 million Chinese Americans live in the United States. They vote, they lead, and they thrive, all because she once dared to rise. In 2018, a Chinatown post office was renamed in her honor. And now, museums tell her story. But her work is far from being over. When COVID-19 hit, so did a wave of anti-Asian hate. Elders were attacked. Communities lived in fear. And in the face of all that darkness, Mabel's story shines brighter than ever. She reminds us that silence is not an answer, that justice is not given, it is demanded, and that young women, especially Asian American women, carry the power to lead change. Years ago, she took on the responsibility to fight so that we could rise today. Now, it's our turn to carry her legacy forward. Thank you.